Okay, can I get your name for the record, and can you spell it, please?
Regan Benson, R-E-G-A-N. Last name Benson, B as in boy, E-N-S-O-N.
Okay, are you familiar with the Denver Parks policy that you have in your hands there, to refresh your memory?
I am. What is not a park?
Yes. Yeah, so are you aware of the fact that the street is not the park, according to their rules?
I'm fully aware of that.
Can you tell me what their rule says on there?
Well, let's look specifically at 2.2, parkways and boulevards. Listed in section 49-16 of the Denver Revised Municipal Code, and all rights of way dedicated by ordinance for street or alley uses. Again, for street or alley uses is defined as what is not a park.
So we can safely say that the street out here is not the park.
Correct.
Just by that alone, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, under section 39-4, as I've given you the paper that designates it, can you tell us a little bit about what they're saying about that?
Well, what they're trying to say is that it'll be unlawful for any person other than authorized personnel to engage in any use of activities in any area or part of any park.
Right.
The street is not the park.
Yes.
So they did try to come out here and enforce what might happen in the park on the street. They can't enforce that on the street. Right.
So you are aware of that part. Were you aware of 39-2, which is on the next sheet?
39-2, adoption of rules. So this
Yes.
kind of talks about giving the Parks and Rec director the ability to make up rules as they go along and apply them under a special directive.
Right. Under normal policy, they would bring up a public hearing in order to enact a change of rules. Can you read to me section G on that sheet?
Section G states, the manager may adopt a temporary directive without following the notice and hearing requirements of this section if such action is necessary to comply with state, local, or federal law, or if it is deemed necessary by the manager to protect immediately the public health, safety, or welfare, or to protect or preserve a park, parkway, medium mountain park, or other recreational facility. On and on about adoption of a temporary directive.
Now, okay, but the important part is coming up on that.
Okay.
Under the policy, they have to follow certain steps. Does it list those steps in there?
The steps. Well, after adoption of a temporary directive, the complete text of the temporary directive so adopted shall be filed with the city clerk, and a notice of adoption shall be published.
Are you aware of any publication of these temporary notices?
Absolutely not.
In the search that I have done, I've located none of them, by the way. I have extensively searched Denver's website that has an online search for the city clerk. I've also inquired with the city clerk about any such published notices or any filings with the city clerk. And I have found 0 filings since, well, I did my search from January of last year, not this year, last year. So we're talking 14 months of a search to see if any directives were published in that time, and none seem to be published.
And what's also notable about that if such temporary directive was published, it shall not continue in effect for more than 180 days after the date of its adoption.
Yes.
But it doesn't exist.
Well, it might exist, but the problem is they didn't publish it and they didn't file it with the clerk. Now, if you go back just a little bit on the steps on how to put it in there, on I think it might have been F.
On the 120
possibly?
days, the judicial or quasi-judicial action.
No, hang on a second here. Okay, can you tell me now about the process that they're required to go through normally for the legalities of filing and publishing it to the public so that they are aware that it has happened?
So the rules shall become effective upon dating and signing of the rules by the manager and the approval of the rules for legality by the city attorney. Within 7 business days after adoption of the rules, the manager shall file a copy of the rules as finally adopted with the clerk and recorder, and the city attorney shall cause to be published a notice of their adoption in an official publication of the city. The notice shall include a statement that the rules are on file with the manager online at a specified Denver website and available for public inspection and copying, which would include all the signage that has already been put up here. We call that illegally because it hasn't gone through any of this process.
Right. So we will go into the process for the other one at a later time for the current signs that are up. So I'll pause again. Okay, I made a correspondence with a supervisor in the Parks and Recreation Department by the name of Joshua Glover, yes.
Yep.
Which we will be asking him for comment on this story. But can you tell us the gist of the...
Well, reading this communication, I can see that he is completely contradicting Denver's Code of Ordinances based on the Department of Parks and Recreation's rules and regulations. The restriction or prohibition of uses and activities 39-4 that he explains here or tries to explain is a complete contradictory to the process of what we just talked about in the Code of Ordinances.
Under Section G, yes.
Under Section G, correct.
Mm-hmm. So your opinion is does he say that they can just put up a sign and that makes it law?
Absolutely. What he's telling you here is that they can use temporary directives and rules and provisions, and they can literally just put up any signs that they want in the parks without following the public process of announcing it via the City Code of Ordinances under 39-2, Adoption of Rules, Section G. I don't really think the Department of Parks and Recs really even know their job. They're grasping at straws.
So how do you feel about the fact that they think that anything that they post makes it legal without running it through the city attorney, without filing it with the city clerk, and without publishing it?
Well, that's illegal activity. And I was here to interrupt that, and apparently now I'm being charged with interference when the truth of the matter is I helped the city and county of Denver avoid all of those potential lawsuits that night from the parks and the cops trying to enforce illegally placed signage is what it boils down to. And
yes.
Now they want to charge me. Now the city and county of Denver wants to charge me with interference for saving them from potentially, I don't know, 10, 12 lawsuits.
Now most cities would probably give a thank you letter rather than a citation that have to take to court.
I got a warrant.
Well,
I got a warrant instead.
I understand that. So now you have your own lawsuit for the violation of your rights while you were protecting the city of Denver and their interests.
Potentially.
As well as the interest of the people that were out here in their vehicles.
Definitely protecting the interest of the people that were out here in their vehicles. Absolutely.
So, do you think that their method of thanking you is the correct way?
No.
So, I mean, they could have just given you a check to
I think they ought
continue...
to cut my nonprofit a check.
Yes.
For, let's say, how much would that lawsuit have cost? I think they ought to cut a check for $500,000. I think that sounds fair.
To help the homeless?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Helping Hands for Dignity Coalition,
yes.
City and County of Denver.
Can you tell me a little bit about your work with that? And the name of your company.
We are a registered 501c3 Helping Hands for Dignity Coalition. I am the executive director of my own nonprofit, and I do have a group of helpers, and we do direct street outreach every single day, solving problems out here on the streets of Denver that the city of Denver refuses to solve themselves with taxpayer dollars. Then we fix those problems and the city punishes us for them. So we're running out of money. So Denver, cut us a check.
So you come up with the solutions and a lot of times put them in effect, helping the homeless out of their situations, or at least to help improve their situation at the time.
Absolutely.
And at the same time preventing Denver from overstepping and overreaching with the law in their heavy-handedness of their war on the homeless.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is a war on the homeless and anyone that dare try to help them.
Yes. So, all right. Okay. What do you think of these new signs that they put up, since they've taken down the illegal signs and replaced them with these ones?
Well, these are illegal too. That's
well,
what I really think.
I know that because it requires public notice, public hearing.
Well, I think the parks went and probably partnered. I mean, this is just my opinion and based on what I know about the area and things that go on over here. I suspect they went over to Colorado Barricade, which is just down the road here. Colorado Barricade has a lot of contracts with the city and the state for road barriers, signage, and all that.
Right.
And I think they had them print these up.
Well, yeah, those are not official
seen
signs, it doesn't look like. Do you notice something peculiar about that?
Well, there's no statute on there that they're using.
Besides that, how about the hours?
Yeah, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Isn't that the same hours that they go by for curfew for the park?
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, that's a very good
The exact same hours, as a matter of fact, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. You would think that they're trying to still use the park's hours to try to keep people away from this area.
To enforce something on the street.
Yes.
The street is not the parks.
Yes.
Yeah, these are cheap ass. I've never seen this kind of material used.
Yeah, I've never seen a sign like this before myself.
No. Super cheap.
So we'll have to inspect them a little bit more and see if they got stickers on them like the rest of the signs do for Denver. But I doubt that they do. So, okay, sir, can you give you, well, I know you don't like giving out your name, right, your legal name out here. Can you give me the name you go by then?
Yes, I go by Mexican Longhair, or MLH as most people know me.
That would be on YouTube, correct?
On YouTube, yes.
So you have a channel there.
Yes.
So you have been helping Regan with this process as well for helping the homeless.
Yes, as much as I can.
So you were just talking about some stuff. Can you tell me again what you were just talking about?
Well, we were talking about the citations that are issued out here, whether they're for the campers that are out here by these illegal no parking signs, or trespassing, or any other interference, obstruction. I mean, any number of citations that the homeless people get out here, it expounds the problems out here, right? The sweeps in general are very jarring for people, mentally and physical. It's mentally and physically exhausting to move, for one. For two, 75% of the stuff that they own is pretty much thrown in the trash and never to be seen again. The other 25% is taken to a storage facility way far away in downtown Denver that only has very small windows of opportunity to get that stuff out. It's a difficult process. Homeless people don't have the transportation that most of us have to be able to go to this place to get the rest of their stuff. So they have to start over time and time again, not to mention have lingering citations over their head with money that they just don't have to begin with. So then it becomes warrants for your arrest, and the problem just expounds. It doesn't get any smaller.
Right. So when they have to move, of course, they have to find a new place to move to,
right,
that they're not going to get harassed at,
right,
for at least a little while.
Right.
So the other issue that they might have is the fact that if they do have a vehicle that they're in, that it might not be running. So they have to figure out how to move that vehicle that isn't running to a new location.
That's a huge problem.
So that might not be too far from here.
Right.
So they keep whittling down the areas that the public can park in, for instance.
Right. It's a total criminalization of being homeless. That's what it boils down to. I know that in Los Angeles, a lot of the same tactics are being used against the homeless people there, and it's spreading. Like it seems like it's spreading eastward, and it's come to Denver. And along with the sweeps, the citations, the money that's involved. The moving of the homeless there's on average 3 sweeps a week here in Denver. So, where are these people supposed to go? There just literally is no place for them to go without being harassed by the police out here.
Well, every place that they go, they're basically trespassing.
Yes.
According to the police.
Yeah,
if they're on private property, they're trespassing. But
right.
Now they're making it so that they're pretty much trespassing on public property.
That's exactly
so
right.
Where do they go at that point?
Yeah,
I know that you guys work on helping them to try to get housing,
right,
and some kind of way to better their situation.
Right. The fact is that not everybody out here is either wants to be housed or chooses to be housed. But Regan does the best at getting people connected with the proper resources. I'm here doing direct outreach. Sometimes I'm on Colfax, up and down Colfax. Sometimes I'll do direct outreach with food and stuff like that. It's a humanitarian crisis more than anything. It's a problem that nobody wants to talk about, especially the city and county of Denver. Mayor Hancock has openly declared war on the homeless at Civic Center Park in downtown Denver, where the entire park is basically fenced off. That's a public park that we all should have access to, that we do not. And,
yes.
And when do those fences come down?
Were you aware of the fact that they did publish the fact that it's closed, but they didn't file it with the city clerk, and they didn't run it through the city attorney about closing the park?
Right. See, that's another huge issue. There's always questions of legality. I have questions of other questions to do with the First Amendment, and like the chief imposing a no recording. I don't know if it's an ordinance or some weird statute that he's got. I think it's a local ordinance more than anything.
No, I believe they're using a Colorado revised statute and twisting it for their own use.
Right. But that's not. It's things like that, like people in positions of power that don't actually have that power to do it, or if they do, the legality is so gray.
Questionable. Very questionable on how they're going about it, yes.
And that's how I feel about Civic Center Park in itself.
Yes.
Not only that, there are certain places around the city that the city has placed huge boulders to where nobody can even put up a tent.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. Didn't you run across some fencing the other day that was in the public right-of-way? On one of the streets?
My memory.
Maybe it was just Regan, but I believe you've seen it. Where they put up fencing, temporary fencing, so that you can't set up a tent in that area. Have you seen that?
that's also, if you look at Civic Center Park, there's certain sections on the opposite street where that statue is, that very ornate statue that they got on there. Some people were setting up tents there, and of course they put up the barrier so that you couldn't do anything there, in addition to the big boulders that they put there. So
right.
It's a huge problem. They've done it. I can understand why they do it under certain viaducts and things of that nature because of the danger.
Right.
But there's a lot of places where these people are out of sight and therefore out of mind, and it doesn't hurt anybody. Nobody is hurt. A lot of times, like businesses like this will complain. But what is there to complain about? There's other than the trash. I hear trash all the time. And then when you propose solutions to that, like let's start having the city pick up the trash out there. Well, we can't do that because it costs too much money. But they will spend anywhere between
5 times that to sweep them out of there.
$20,000 to $60,000 a week, or each sweep. So if you take the average of 3. I mean, at minimum, they're spending $60,000 a week just on sweeping these people into different areas, which makes no sense because eventually they will come back to these areas because they've got it's like a ring around the rosy effect. You know, there's no place for them to go.
Right.
There's absolutely no place for them to go, so they have to, you know, pick up and move. Just imagine moving every month. Every month you have to pick up.
Sometimes it's even more than once.
Sometimes it's even more, but on average, about a month, you pick up the rest of your stuff, which 75% I've already said is destroyed, and most of it is put. So it's starting over, basically.
When they're doing these sweeps, isn't most of the people out there actually at a job trying to better their life?
There's a lot of, okay, see, here's the misconception. A lot of these people do work. You know, Regan has worked with a lot of people to get you know, jobs. I know Jason was one of the people out here that had a good paying job for a good long while. You know, they're trying. A lot of them are trying, and I did a documentary. It's one episode now, but Sarah explained, you know, some of these people, even if they don't have jobs, work harder than people with jobs, you know, just trying to get enough money to survive the night. You know, sometimes they'll be out 10, 12 hours or more trying to beg for enough money just to survive, just to get enough
for their
food,
basics of food and everything else,
food,
necessities.
Water, shelter. You know, some of these people don't even have tents, and it gets really, really cold out here.
Yes,
you know?
It does.
So, I mean, it's just, it's one thing after another that these people have to deal with, and it's a good thing that there are people like Regan that are fighting, actively fighting. I mean, there's not enough people like her, and that's, you know, partially what inspired me to get off my butt and do some of the things that I do. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. What's your opinion on the Denver police prosecuting Regan Benson on this and saving them from being sued by multiple people for violating the law, for themselves violating the law?
It's a shame. It's a shame, and I think it's a wake-up call. You know, it's instead of thanking her, like I think you pointed out earlier in an interview with Regan. I mean, I agree with that assessment. I mean, the city should be bending over backwards to writing her and thanking her, and probably cutting a check to her nonprofit for saving them a huge lawsuit from probably 10 to 12 people. That I think I counted 12 campers out here that night. So I think it's atrocious. I think the city should really rescind their treatment of her, and I think issue at the very least an immediate apology.
Yeah. So do you think that perhaps that they want to give the people lawsuits on them instead, so that they're paying the homeless people directly, even though it may be a time down the road for a process of a lawsuit?
That's highly doubtful. I mean, no city wants extra money out the door like that. I mean, then you're dealing with budget cuts in other areas or things of that nature.
So why would they be acting illegally then?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah. Why would they be acting illegally out here then, on their war against the homeless, trying to remove them when they pretty much would know that they're breaking the law? At least I would assume so. I mean, they do say that ignorance of the law is no excuse, and they are law enforcement. Right. So you would think that at some point they would understand what they're doing is wrong, right?
Right. I agree with that. I don't think there's any question about that, but I think, I mean, it's the city. They kind of get away with that, whatever they want, unless somebody challenges it all the way, you know, up to and including the Supreme Court of Colorado, you know, and you know, it's going to take a lot of courage by a certain number of individuals to take it that far. So I think, you know, honestly, I think it's partially incompetence. I mean, anytime a government gets too big for its own britches, it tends to fall over itself and cause a lot of issues that just don't need to be caused. There is no way that they're thinking of the homeless. As a matter of fact, I think, you know, in my opinion, I think it's all about visuals. You know, if you see somebody in a camper that may be run down, some of these businesses out here may not like that. you know, and I don't know why. This is in an industrial area where not a lot of customers are coming, so there's really no argument than the people within the building themselves. So it's more of a visual thing than anything. You know, if they see a little bit of trash built up, then it becomes, you know, oh, look at these criminals out here. They're doing nothing but bringing drugs and crime. I've heard that story over and over, even though there's absolutely no proof that the people that are in these encampments cause any more trouble than what's not normally already there to begin with. So, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.